Hello and welcome to Victoriana. We're back from Christmas. It's the beginning of January. It is ridiculously mild. It's been an absolute crazy end of December and beginning of January. All we've had is rain and rain and rain and lots of wind. And we've come back to work and we are cracking into our potting. We can't actually do an awful lot outside because it is so wet. Can't put a spade in the ground. Can't get on with any planting, just can't do this, can't do that. So this is a job we don't usually start until probably the beginning of February, and sometimes even the beginning of March it can drag into if we're really busy. But as I say, we can't get on outside, so we've turned jobs around this year. We're going to start potting. We've got quite a few thousand fruit trees that we'll be potting up over the next few weeks. Then we start on to grapes. And yeah, from there really the season begins. We're also just starting to think about doing a little bit of seed sowing. I'll talk about that later. And now I'll give you a quick run around the nursery. So in a year like this, it's a greenhouse like this that really comes into its own, because an awful lot of our small stuff needs protection from heavy rain rather than the cold. We're actually running this greenhouse with the vents open. Got a crack open all the time, apart from when we've had the wind. So we're still getting most of the cooler temperatures. Again, not that it's been that cold, but we're getting the cooler temperature. But more importantly, with the smaller plants grown in the modules, if they'd been outside, they'd have either been washed away or been so waterlogged, they'd have rotted away, and especially with it being so mild. So yeah, this year we're quite pleased with this house. Obviously we've got other things in here as well, like the grapes, which we'd like to give just a sniff of protection when they're in containers. But again, we haven't had to worry about that really because we haven't had the cold. Again, our problem in here really is the weeds are continuing to grow, and stuff is growing a little bit more than we'd like it to. It's very difficult. We can't run the vents very far open because we've had so many nights of very high wind, and I don't like getting up in the middle of the night too often. Have to do it occasionally to shut the vents, but don't want to do it all the time, so we're not right open. But yeah, so it's actually quite warm and mild in here. Not much warmer than outside, to be honest, but yeah, things are still trying to grow a little bit more than we'd like, but I guess that's what's happening everywhere else as well. So out here on the veg garden, it's all a bit odd really. We managed to get most of the areas dug over before Christmas, in between the showers of then. But now our biggest problem really is that the weeds are growing. It's so mild that the ground that's been dug over is starting to produce weed here, there and everywhere. So obviously we haven't done any rotivating or cultivating just yet, and we're going to end up with weed everywhere on dug over ground, which is going to be quite an interesting one. Also, not that we have had any real cold weather at all, things like the artichokes that we protect, so we wrap them up in newspaper and cardboard each year. It's been so wet that the newspaper's rotted away and the cardboard's rotted away already, which is the first time we've seen that before. So yeah, no, really, for this time of year, the veg garden is about where it should be. We're eating and lifting parsnips and carrots and still spinach coming, and obviously the brassicas. But other than that, no, it's a pretty quiet area out here at the moment. So down here in the flower area, we did get the chrysanthemums lifted out, and dahlias obviously. Left it a little bit later this year because obviously it was so mild. Managed to get all the area turned over, and then we planted back with some winter and early spring bedding, so some prims and things, and obviously pansies, etc., and violas. But the reality is that at the moment it looks pretty much of a quagmire. We've had so much rain and wind, you wouldn't really believe there's an awful lot in here. Hopefully, if the weather cheers up, if we get some dry weather, if we get some cold weather, everything here will start to establish, and we'll start to look a little bit more cheerful for the coming months. So here in the bubble, we've finally said goodbye to the chilies. I think it's the latest that we've actually had chilies with fruit. We actually run the bubble at about 6-7 Celsius at this time of year, which is a little bit cold for the chilies, but obviously with it being so mild, we have only actually called for heat a couple of times, and that's why we've actually had fruit and kept fruits right through until after Christmas. There was a little bit of mildew and mould coming in, so we decided it was time to say goodbye to them. So this bench has all been cleared of the last of the chilies of last year's plants, and we're literally just about today to start potting up the fuchsia cuttings we took in the late autumn. And then obviously with the fuchsias growing away, because once again they haven't really stopped because of the mildness, we'll start with another batch of cuttings. So I'll finish off for January in the prop. As you can see, our beds are basically all empty. We've got no heat on, not running any light, and currently haven't actually started anything just yet. And I think that's really the key. So many people start stuff very, very early. I've already seen lots of people have started their chilies. I've seen one or two magazines even recommending getting your tomatoes underway, which is completely ridiculous. We'll be thinking about getting some of our chilies underway next week, but obviously we've got very, very good artificial lighting in here. We've got very good heat, so we can basically give everything exactly what it needs. If you haven't got that, you will end up buying seed again. It's ridiculous to start sowing so early if you haven't got the good growing conditions, so please don't. Hang on a little bit, things will be fine. But yeah, from our point of view, we're going to think about our starting sowings next week. So we're just sort of clearing down the prop beds, getting them tidy, sterilising them as they're needed, and yeah, so next time I catch up, I'm going to say they won't be completely full. We don't start panicking until March and running out of room, but I should think by then we'll have a couple of beds full and running, and starting to think about an awful lot more things.